What's going on, YouTube? This is Slickfresh Wizard here. Time for my review of UFC 140 Jon Jones versus Lyoto Machida. Let's talk about this. Man. This was definitely top 5 or maybe even top 3 of my favorite cards of the year just because of the volume of what happened in it and the content. There was some history made, and there were some surprises, a few surprisingly quick finishes, and some really memorable moments for a truly unforgettable night. So from the top, Jon Jones retains his UFC lightweight title in defeating Lyoto Machida in the second round with a modified standing guillotine choke. Wow. Jones becomes the first person to submit Lyoto, and this is the first time that the UFC light heavyweight champion has managed to successfully defend their belt twice, since Chuck Liddell had it, of course. And all in all, about Jon, what can I say about this bout? Even though Lyoto Machida lost, he still didn't disappoint me, and this ended up winning fight of the night for, that reason, because in the first round, Lyoto really did his thing. He looked relaxed. He looked, really pumped up. He was moving. He was dropping his hands a lot too. He was really finding his range and landing strikes. It was that first round was the first time that I had ever seen Jon Jones cleanly caught with solid strikes. So Jon Jones showed that he can take a punch. At least he took the ones that he got in that first round. While listening to the 411 Ground and Pound podcast with Mark Radulich actually said that he thinks that he thought that Jon Jones won the first round. Mark, I don't know what about your watching. There's no way that Lyoto Machida did not win that first round, but after they did their strikes, and I also heard that most of the judges gave that first round to Jon Jones too for doing nothing but, coming forward and throwing spinning back kicks and leg kicks and all that stuff. So, that's how it goes. But the problem with mixed martial arts judging, that things like that need to be addressed, really. It's not good when one guy is clearly winning and yet the judges are just giving it to the guy that's advancing or moving forward. But if Lyoto had kept that up for 5 rounds, he would have won, at least in the eyes of a proper judge who was really watching the fight and analyzing what was going on. But Jon Jones, when he finally got that takedown, and it wasn't that difficult for him to take Lyoto Machida down, which was surprising because usually Lyoto's takedown defense is very good. He tripped him on the leg, scooped him up, and landed just one elbow. Jon Jones could have the most dangerous elbows in the UFC right now, so yeah, he landed one elbow and opened up a cut on Lyoto's eye, and then when they got back to their feet, they both threw left hands at the same time, straight lefts, which sometimes Lyoto relies on a bit too much, but in the second round, Jon Jones blocked it, caught him with his straight left, quickly grabbed that guillotine choke, and Lyoto didn't tap out, he just fell unconscious to the mat after Jon Jones released the hold. Man. This is a really big win for Jones, and I'm not gonna lie, it's starting to seem like that he really is the best 205-pound fighter in the world, just the way that he's able to... He really is just running through most guys, with no one since his fight with Stephan Bonner at the George St. Pierre versus John Fitch... ever since UFC 94, when Jon Jones' fight against Stephan Bonner, no one has even been able to make it to a unanimous decision with Jon Jones. And I don't care about his loss with Matt Hamill. So far, he is undefeated. So, what's next for him? I want to see Jon Jones fight Rashad Evans, and I want to see him fight Dan Henderson. I don't want to discuss him fighting Anderson Silva just yet. Yet I think Dana White thinks that that's the fight to make. And I would still pick Silva in that bout, just because I think that Silva has the stronger stand-up and the more unpredictable, diverse, sharper stand-up too. Probably than anybody else in the world, so that's why. Great win for Jones. As for Lyoto Machida, me see. Who else won tonight? He could fight Igor Pokrayak. We could talk about that next. But, okay, the co-main event. Frank Mir versus Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Oh my god. Man. I picked Frank Mir to win this, and I was almost wrong, because he almost got knocked out in the first round, but then he took Nogueira's arm, cranked it. Nogueira tried to reverse, and he did, but then Frank Mir whipped him back over again in a really surprising move, and then Frank Mir dislocated and broke Nogueira's arm, and Rodrigo Nogueira's arm in the first round. Man, that was tough to watch, because to see that happen, and not just that, but that was the first time that Nogueira was submitted, and there's no debate, he did tap out, you know. If you just watch his left hand, he tapped. Wow, this is a really tough loss for Nogueira, and a huge win for Frank Mir. You know, motorcycle accident or not, when Frank Mir is getting wins and when he's got his mind in the right place, he really does impressive stuff, you know. The first man to stop Nogueira with strikes, and now he's the first man to submit Nogueira. So Frank Mir is really making a case for why he deserves maybe one more go at the UFC heavyweight title. And I would still pick Cain Velasquez to beat him, because I don't think that Cain Velasquez would not have allowed Mir to recover and get up after rocking him. And as for Nogueira right here, you know, I don't know. Maybe give him Roy Nelson or Fabricio Verdum, because Verdum's coming back to the UFC. Alright. And hopefully his arm gets fixed. That was, Okay, Tito Ortiz versus Rogerio Nogueira. Rogerio Nogueira. Nogueira won. Body punches in the first round. TKO. So, yeah, this is a tough spot for Tito. You know, he's done his thing with the UFC. Most UFC fights ever... by the way, I didn't realize this, but Frank Mir has the most wins at heavyweight in the UFC ever. There you go. Okay. Yeah. You know, Tito Ortiz was able to get some good timing. I mean, some good momentum going with that Ryan Bader win, but he's looking again like Tito Ortiz. He looks like he gets hurt and he gasses easily. He looked okay against Rashad Evans, but that's just a bad matchup. You know, before getting finished by him in the second round, and I think Rogerio Nogueira, that's the best he's looked in the UFC so far. And that's the first time he has been stopped in the first round, I think, since, gosh, Guy Metzger? Maybe? Let me see. Yeah, wow. The only other guy to finish Tito Ortiz in the first round was Guy Metzger all the way back at UFC 13, when Tito Ortiz made his UFC debut in May 30th of 1997. That's a long time ago there. Good win for Rogerio Nogueira, so his resume can say, look, he's coming off a win over Tito Ortiz and all that stuff, so there you go. As for Tito, he needs, strangely enough, like a Ryan Bader or a Vladimir Matyushenko type matchup nowadays. But honestly, I think he should retire. You know, I think he's got one more fight on his contract left, and I was surprised he didn't just get up and say that, you know, I'm done. This is it. I've got to go. He says he wants to go spend some time with his family and take some time off. So go ahead and do that. Tito Ortiz, just keep doing your thing. You'll probably always have a job with Zuffa. Okay, Claude Patrick versus Brian Ebersol. I picked Claude Patrick to win this one, and I think maybe he could have if he hadn't been so relaxed during this fight, but Brian Ebersol doesn't. You know, I didn't think he could, but he got the one. He gave Claude Patrick his first loss in the UFC. And Ebersol, he's I think he's never been knocked out in his 65 fights he's had. And let me see how many times has he been. He's been submitted 9 times, but he showed some pretty decent submission defense, or at least close to that, because he would just willingly give his neck to Claude Patrick, in like, knowing that you're not going to choke me out, knowing that Claude Patrick wouldn't finish him. Claude was really trying in the third round to finish Brian Ebersol with that the guillotine choke and the anaconda choke, but Claude he's mostly a submission wrestler with pretty good submissions, with pretty good jiu-jitsu too, and a good game off of his back. So he needs to find a way to deal with strikers, and he needs to develop more powerful striking too if he should start to really make any type of waves whatsoever in the UFC welterweight division. And Brian Ebersol, this is a really good one. I'd like to see him fight Rory McDonald next after Rory McDonald defeats Che Mills at a card coming up next year. So there you go. Good one for him. And I think fans are really starting to take notice of just who Brian Ebersol is and what he's all about with his relentless style and the pace he puts up. Okay, the last fight on the main card, Mark Hominick versus Chan Sung Jung, or... Oh, man. Mark Hominick, what were you doing? You know? The second that Mark Hominick went out there and he decided to touch gloves first with the Korean Zombie. He just touched gloves, and then he tried to hit him with an overhand right. And after he threw that, you know... Actually, no, it was a left hand. After he just threw a kind of lazy left hook, he just paused for a second, giving Chan all the time he needed to knock him out in 7 seconds. That ties the record for the official fastest UFC knockout in the history. Really, Dwayne Ludwig, I think, holds the record. At 4 seconds. Really good one for Chan Sung Jung. He did in 7 seconds what Aldo could not do in 5 rounds. And, you know, for Mark Hominick, he needs to avoid doing reckless stuff like that. That's tough, you know, especially coming off of his, the loss of Sean Tompkins, his trainer, and being in your native town in Canada that night. That's gotta be tough, but he looked humble in defeat, so... He should probably fight Hatsuhiyuki next. That's a fight that hopefully Hominick will be able to win. I think Mark Hominick could have won this fight if he had fought smarter instead of, you know, just trying to go for a quick, easy finish like that. And, wow, Igor Pekrajek really impressed me with his 35-second destruction of Krzysztof Soszynski. That's the quickest he's been beaten in the UFC. Konstantinos Philippou, or Costa as they were calling him, just destroyed Jared Hammond. That was a beautiful series of combinations in the first round in their fight. Really good one. I would have gotten most of these wrong, just for the record, on the undercard. Because, you know, I picked John McDessie to win, but in his fight, too, against Dennis Hallman, Dennis Superman Hallman gets it done, chokes out John McDessie in the first round. Yves Yabun defeats Well Watson. That's the only fight on the Ion Television card that I would have gotten right. Mark Bocek defeated Nick Lentz, giving him his first loss in the UFC in kind of a dull fight, but Bocek got the win. That's good. Jake Hetch defeated Rich Antonito, and John Cloish defeated Mitch Clark. Really good night of fights. There were 6 first-round finishes. I think there were only 3 unanimous decisions on the entire event. That's really something. And on the good card, I'm probably going to get it on DVD when it comes out. And on Friday, the UFC is going to put up Lesnar versus Overeem, so it looks like Lesnar's going to be fighting after all. Keep up with mixed martial arts, guys. This is Slugfest Wizard signing off.